Hi, Nancy. Happy Wednesday. How are you?
I'm good. Delighted to be here. Happy
I pre-
Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Thank you. I appreciate that. Happy Wednesday is also known as Hump Day. We're halfway there, right?
Right.
But something tells me with your schedule, I don't know if you do you ever let me just get people an idea of who I'm talking to right now because you are not a pretty big deal. You are a big deal. A national speaker on women's empowerment, well-being, and mindful technology. You've been featured on Good Morning America, New York Times, Today Show, and countless other media outlets. It doesn't stop there. You're a regular blogger for Psychology Today. In addition, you spent 25 years as a nationally top-ranked equestrian while serving as a performance consultant to professional athletes and artists. And my next question is Nancy Colier really a human or is she AI? Because do you sleep or no?
AI for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely AI. The thing is, I love everything I do. So none of it feels depleting. The book I wrote recently, The Emotionally Exhausted Woman, is really more about not what we do, because we all do too much, whatever that means. If we're doing things we love, nothing is too much, but how we sacrifice our own wants and needs and authenticity to be likable, to fit in, to meet the endless uh, requirements that are set for us and we set for ourselves. Get off, to be on this treadmill of should. So once I was able to step off that inner shoulding treadmill, all I have is just a lot of things I love to do, but it's that other pressure to never be disappointing, to never not be who everyone wants us to be, that makes one tired. Or that's what I've seen.
Living up to others' expectations. So now I'm going to back up a little bit here because you're a longtime student of Eastern spirituality, a psychotherapist, interfaith minister, and author. So,
Busy. I'm busy.
busy, right? It's understatement. Eastern spirituality, psychotherapist, interfaith minister. Is that part of Course of Miracles?
No, that's not. An interfaith minister is whatever you go to seminary for 2 years and you learn about all the major religions. And for me, I'm a spiritual counselor. So what that means is that I've done, maybe 40 years of meditation and practice and so on. And I incorporate awareness practices into everything I do, into the psychotherapy I do with people, into the coaching work, into the writing. It forms the wallpaper of everything that I offer in terms of basic goodness being our nature, in terms of self-compassion being our practice, and essentially seeing awareness as the way to freedom. More than a prescriptive approach, it's if we make space for what's happening and bring kindness to that, that the system takes us to where we need to be. I have a deep faith in that.
That's great. And for those of us people listening who are not familiar with the difference between psychotherapist, psychiatrist, and psychologist, there is a difference.
Yes.
So share a little bit of each.
A psychotherapist has done generally a master's in social work and then what's called institute training. So we go on and do further study that's clinical or whatever it might be with people. A psychologist has a PhD, so they are a doctor of science. Very, very often these days, that's for people that want to do research in the field or teach at a university, often be a professor in that way. And then a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who these days generally skews toward psychopharmacology. It's the one that prescribes antidepressants, anti-anxieties, and so on. But, it really, therapy is so much about the relationship. So, whenever I'm encouraging people to find the right therapist, it's about how you feel in the room with the person or on Zoom with the person.
Sure.
And not to get too hung up, our mind, speaking of can't stop thinking, loves to say, well, this is more important than that, write a narrative about it in our, a story, and this one can go on the connection, go on something more intuitive about what feels like the person that's going to stretch you outside your usual stories about yourself and everyone else.
And that being said, that takes me to the next question. In your opinion, do you feel the Bible is more dogmatic, ambiguous, or open for interpretation?
The Bible itself. That's a complicated question. What brought you to the Bible there?
Well, faith, obviously, if you're, interfaith minister, right? So that going across the board, when people think of a minister, they're going to automatically think they could use spirituality or they can speak religion. So that question right there is pertaining to your view, your approach, and what you're teaching and what you're, helping people understand. Is it practical or is it literal?
So I don't work with the Bible.
Okay.
Right. What I work with is, in terms of interfaith ministry, is the perennial truth, a truth of who we really are in terms of being basic goodness or in terms of being awareness. I come from what's called a non-dual approach, so that it means that the separation we imagine ourselves as, I'm separate from you, I'm separate from my puppy, which creates the despair we feel, that is an illusion, that we are made of the same awareness. So not to get too deep into what non-duality is, but I don't teach about the Bible. I've done 2 years of seminary. I've done a lot of Eastern work in Buddhism and Hinduism and non-duality, but I don't preach from the Bible. I don't use it as my base.
Gotcha. I believe my personal preference is this, like you said, there's no divisibility, right? Mm-hmm. There's no demarcation. Mm-hmm. There's no separation.
Yeah.
We are the power of God. If you're going to ask me that question, that's my answer. We are. And the problem when people get tripped up is they feel that they are separate from that. And I believe your demarcation, your separation from that is what is, my opinion, being in that experience I've been through with the depression, suicidal ideation, that separation can create a huge void.
That's right. It's a God-sized hole. We call it a God-sized hole. And it is where we imagine it's where we get, I think we really join there. It's where we get split off from our godness.
1,000% I agree with you on that. 1,000%.
And then we become this, face. We have a face now. We have a separate self. We have to defend that self. We have to have all sorts of narratives about the I, me. And what that creates is deep existential angst and despair.
I agree. And now I want to touch on this overthinking. I think I read somewhere that the overthinking is now in the DSM. Is that correct? Am I correct on saying that?
Overthinking. I don't know if it's in DSM-5. I certainly know that there are multiple disorders that contain overthinking as qualifications.
Right.
But I know that rumination and overthinking are the diseases of our time. Yes.
And that got me, and this is where I want to really dig in with you. And this is because that rumination, lamenting that I couldn't turn off, kept going on and on and on, and got me so deep in depression that I wanted literally to kill myself. That was how I felt. I could not get out of it, and it couldn't turn it off. It would not stop. So what is it about a person? Because I don't think, my personal opinion is this. I don't think the majority of people experience the level of rumination that I had felt in that period of time. to the point where I just, even at night, it would wake me up. It wouldn't stop. And I was at Mayo Clinic in Arizona, and I never forget this. I was multiple treatments to find out what's going on with me. Doctor comes in the room and he says, "What's going on?" And I told him, I said, "It's these voices." And before I could say another word, he said, "Oh, you're hearing," like he almost want to lock me up. "Oh, you're hearing voices?" I'm like, "Oh shit, I better cool off here because I think they're about to take me away." Literally, Nancy, that's how I felt. And I said, "Oh yeah, it's like this." But literally, at that point, the self-talk was more than self-talk. It was bombardment of these horrible voices. What is that?
Wow. Wow. It just sounds torturous.
It was torturous.
Can I ask a question there? Did it get kicked off by any particular event, or it just showed up, or you'd always been that way?
I've always heard the rumination, the voice, the lamenting, and it really what happened. I noticed around the same time my son was born, I put this pressure on myself to be more than perfect. Because now my father's perfectionist, my mother's a critic. Okay, so I'm not no blaming. Just I'm telling you this is how the teachers I was raised by. So I had this self-critic in me all the time since I was a kid. And I'll never get, my mother said our puppy was going in, or not a puppy, it was actually a dog at that point. Our dog swallowed a Super Bowl. He was a yellow lab mixed with a golden retriever, something like that. Big dog. He swallowed a Super Bowl ball and he had to go to the vet and get a surgery. I'll never forget. I was Nancy. I was probably 7 years old. And my mom said to me, "Oh, she was torn apart. His name was Cannon. Cannon's got to have surgery. I'm not sure if he's going to live," and this and that. She was like, and she goes, "Always assume the worst so you're never disappointed."
Oh, no, Mom.
And that was like, boom, that was it. And so there you go.
Yeah.
That's the mindset I had. Always assume the worst, so you're never disappointed. I learned how to be a worrier by a master worrier. So you're asking me, was I always like that? Yeah, I probably was always like that. But when I had my son, now I had the critic and the perfectionism. I got to be this perfect father. And then the rumination really kicked in. And then in 2019, it was out of control for 5 years.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, one of the ways, we look at overthinking, and that kind of overthinking, the worrier, the catastrophizer, is that catastrophizer is really trying to protect us. It sounds so counterintuitive, but to make sure we're never blindsided, we're never disappointed, we're never caught off guard.
Like my mom said, right? There you go.
Exactly. And that if I rehearse the worst over and over and over and prepare, then when it happens, somehow I'll be more ready.
Right.
And of course, the only thing that it really does is it guarantees that we're going to get to live the horror once, maybe twice if it happens.
Sure.
But it never happens in the style that, of course, we imagine it. But I'll certainly get to live it this one time. And the truth is, as you know, right, that there does come a point where we've rehearsed it enough. We've done everything we can do to prepare. And now we need to leave that and trust that if something comes to pass that is like that, then we will meet that challenge then. So part of the discernment in helping people get free of the overthinking and rumination is recognizing, have I done everything I can do to prepare for this? Okay. Right? So now, can I come back to the present moment and be with what actually is now, which is we don't know. So another aspect of the catastrophizer, which you had in spades, is that the catastrophizer can't bear uncertainty. Right? It can't bear not knowing.
Right.
And so it fills in the not knowing with the certainty of doom.
I call them worst case what ifs. That's what I call it. The worst case what ifs is what I had.
Yes. And listen, if we're going to have a what if, or let's have the positive version of it. What if everything goes beautifully, right? But you didn't have that one. I hear that. But so we're one of the other ways that we start to get free of that catastrophizer is to really recognize that the problem is I don't know. The only thing I know is I don't know. And I have to sit with that. And that can be scary. But this narrative I'm writing about, it'll certainly be terrible. That's just the anxiety about not knowing.
And after a while, Nancy, it becomes a habit. And there's literally chemicals in the brain that get used. It's like smoking, drinking, any other addiction. The brain gets used to it. And Joe Dispenza taught me this, is like, you could be driving, and once you're once you're progressing, and you could be triggered, and your mind says, wait a minute, this is the point where you get pissed off and angry, and you're like, after you've been doing your meditation, I'm not there anymore. But your brain literally releases chemicals to get that reaction, to feed the familiarity. And that's that's what happens. Addiction. That's there you go. Who's more, who does this more? I know your book was about the exhausted woman, but do you see men as clients as well, patients?
So I've written 6 books. And the one before Emotionally Exhausted Woman is Can't Stop Thinking.
You write it for me? Was that me you wrote that for?
Yes. But that is a book that has sold off the shelves.
Yeah, I could see why.
I give workshops all over the country for, of course, men and women. And it is not, you're not alone in this, that from the time, that we're born, our thoughts are happening. And the great misconception is that we imagine that they are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not taught early on that thoughts are happening. They're happening. We don't choose them. They just happen. How do we want to be in relationship with them is the task. Our thoughts and our mind in general is our servant, not our master.
Right.
So, but the problem is very early on, we're taught, of course, that the thoughts that we have are our thoughts. We crafted them. We're identified with them. There's no separation.
Right.
And we're merged with them. And that the answer to every problem we might have is to think more about it.
Exactly.
When often it's the thinking about it, going down the rabbit hole yet another time, that is the problem, not the solution.
1,000%.
So there does come a point, I think, in all of our lives, those who've recovered from overthinking, where we see the thoughts beckoning us. We see them saying, come down the rabbit hole, come down. And we know in our bones that if we follow that, we will suffer.
And who's overthinking more in your experience, men or women?
Equal.
Do you really think that?
I really do.
Yeah.
From my experience, I've seen so many folks over the years who suffer with this, both suffer with perfectionism, both genders suffer with worry, both genders suffer. My experience, if I were to skew in any direction, is that women are often more on this treadmill of who do I need to be acceptable, loved, valued, and of course, selfless, which is how we're supposed to be. And we are also a little bit more managing 5,000 different things between the families and the careers and all of it, and holding those in our mental real estate. So I have found if I'm going to skew in a direction, I'm going to say women a little bit more.
Okay. And then I must be the rarity, because in all my relationships, I tend to be the get it done. And I'm not in a chauvinistic, I'm the man kind of, no, it's like, I'll suggest. And then more times than not, it comes to like, I see who you are, get it done. And I'm like, good, I'll get it done. Get it done. So then I find myself organizing, planning, pretty much everything
Wow.
And yeah, and I love it. I really enjoy that. I mean, my mother taught me when I was 6 years old. She put a sign up above the washer and dryer with instructions, step by step, how to wash your clothes. My mother said, "Do not ever marry a woman to depend on her to take care of you. Take care of yourself, and you marry a woman to be equal with." You know, that was her. That was her. So there was some, that was pretty disciplined of her to say that. So I've been the, I'm the neat freak. If you're living with me, I'm the one who has the labels facing out. And the house is organized, doing the laundry, cleaning. I'm taking care of that. But I'm also, like mom taught me, I'm the worrier, the overthinker. So that when I got through that depression, I'm on the other side of it now. I hear it, but I'm no longer controlled by it. No longer controlled by it.
I think that's the real shift. And that's what I teach people and Can't Stop Thinking. That's precisely what the book is about. Is very often it's not about that going away. Right? They still kind of pepper at you, and you have your wiring and nervous system and so on. But it's about, first of all, being able to stop and say, wow, I'm really being flooded by this. I'm really, or I'm really down the rabbit hole now. I'm really in it. I'm really caught. Or just, wow, the thoughts are really strong, and being willing to not bite the hook and being able to stay in the present moment. Just stay in the present moment. Come back into the body. Do all of these strategies that we can talk about, where I'm not going to jump on every thought train that my mind rolls through the tracks.
Yeah.
So we have agency there. Most people, they just are dragged around all day long with, whatever thought comes down the ticker tape. So we don't have to live that way.
It's a choice, but I have to say this. Listening to you say that, listening to my story is not going to change somebody's chemistry in the brain. What they have to do is go through the process. They have to train the brain, the neuroplasticity, the neurons, change that brain, because right now that brain is in a habit pattern. There needs to be a pattern interruption. And just people, I really hope they hear what you're saying. It takes work. It's like building a muscle. You can't just go online and look at all the cool videos about people working out and expect that you're going to get that same body. You have to go through the grind. You have to hustle and grind. You have to go through the process of changing that, because it is a habit. And I would never be on this side of it if I didn't do the countless hours of work to get here.
And I appreciate you saying that, because often what we do is we get involved in all of these different programs and so on. And really, if you look closely, what's happening is we're just feeding the monkey mind more. We're feeding new ways of talking about it, new ways, but we haven't. What really releases us more than anything else is the willingness, when we're smack in the middle of it, right? And the mind is telling us, you have to stay here. You have to figure this one out. You have to do this. Right there, to drop out and just take a conscious breath, or to learn how to resist. It's a courageous thing, and come back into the body, to feel your seat in the chair, to drop out of mind when that mind is saying, but the answer is here. The answer is another loop. Even though you've done 312,000, another loop here, you're going to find the diamond in the rubble. You are. Yeah. To recognize that voice and say, well, that system hasn't worked for me. So just in this moment, I'm not making any plans for anything, a new me. That it's just in this moment, I'm going to drop into a conscious breath. That's all.
Yeah.
I guarantee you the problem will be there if you go back to find it. But this solution is not working.
Nancy, why is there a stigma? I mean, my cause now is, because of everything I've been through, I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't wish upon anybody, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because of that experience, I am at a whole nother level of life right now. Whole nother level of life. I could never have gotten here if I didn't go through what I went through. It's like going through Navy SEAL training. You're not going to become a SEAL until you go through the process. It's hell in the process, but on the other side of it, now you're better because of it. So my cause now is to share, break the stigma, support the cause. Why is there a stigma when darn well I know every other person you talk to is or has dealt with mental health challenges. But then again, nobody wants to talk about it. Why is there a stigma around this? If you broke your leg, Nancy, you're not going to feel ashamed that you broke your leg. If you're having mental health challenges, and I've never experienced it to the degree I've heard people experience it, but are they really experiencing it with other people, or are they just conscious and afraid to share it because of what they think they may feel from the other person?
Such a good question. Wow, isn't that a mystery? In a macro sense, Brett, I think that we still hold on to some idea of who we're supposed to be as human beings, and some idea that we shouldn't suffer, or we shouldn't be vulnerable, or we shouldn't have challenges. There is a kind of always a background sense that we're failing if we're the full miracle and catastrophe that it is to be a human being, right? Our culture is frightened of the whole of it, which for everyone includes all the human messiness. We like things neat, packaged, clean, and perfect. And it's not how we're made. It's not how the regular human being rolls. And those who look that way are usually repressing a lot or hiding. So I think it's a deeper and longer conversation about why this idea of who we're supposed to be as humans. And somehow when you bring in psychology and our minds, we treat it as if there's a failing, which we don't so much for the body, although for some folks, even the body being vulnerable is seen as a failure. It's our fear, I think, in part of the unknowable, the uncontrollable, the uncertainty that life includes, right? And that this is part of it. So I love that you're speaking out. If I can ask you a question too, when you say you're an entirely different person, and on the other side, if you were to language just a little bit, in what way?
My best way I become conscious. I become a conscious awareness. I've developed that because if you live in an unconscious state, you have no idea. And my bubble popped. I look back like, how was I living like that? We get so entrenched in that lifestyle and that mindset, we don't even realize how deep we're getting ourselves into. And then when that thing falls apart and pops and everything crumbles down, comes unglued, I was literally standing in the mirror with a pearl handle pistol in my hand, thinking about blowing the brains out the side of my head on the bathroom floor. At that point, I'm looking at a total stranger in the mirror saying, who in the hell have I become? I don't know if you ever been through anything like this, but it's this most frightening feeling to think this body wants to take itself out. And I'm thinking, who have I become?
That much suffering.
Yeah, it was so bad, Nancy. And I had my boy was 5 at the time. He's 11 today. So from 2019 to 2024 was hell around the clock. It was a miserable existence.
Right. That almost sounds like, I didn't know you then, so I wouldn't even stand in this at all, but that the obsessive compulsive aspect of your mind was in full form. So when that is torturing you, right, and unrelenting, it can feel like an unbearable place to be conscious, just unbearable to be conscious.
True. It was unbearable. It really was. So you asked me a question. So I guess if I haven't answered it, I've become more, I'm a conscious, now I'm aware. I'm aware of those thoughts. Sure. I meditate. I will not leave the house. I've been meditating for years. I will not leave the house without doing my power of gratitude in the morning while I'm in bed. Get out of bed, get my chair, do the meditation, breathing exercises, affirmations, visualization. I will not leave. That's my ritual. Those are my non-negotiables. I don't care if I'm traveling across the country or the world. That's what I'm doing every day. And because I know if I wasn't doing that, there's a chance I go back to maybe where I was, and I do not want to ever relive that ever again in my lifetime. So I'm practicing like a golfer would practice his golf swing. No golfer is going to hit that hole in one every hole, but they can master the game of golf by becoming better in the process.
And I hear you, and I hope too that in that process, so there is a practice I hear of working
Gratitude.
muscle, well, of course, but working this muscle that is creating and cultivating and stabilizing this separate, safe shore from which to look out at all this choppy water of mind, of thought, right? So you're stabilizing, you're building, you're kind of retouching in every morning with the awareness that can see the thoughts, right? Very critical. And also I'm hoping that there's a practice of self-compassion in that, where a recognition of that fear you just named. I don't want to go back. But a sense of kindness towards even the fear, right? Noticing the fear. So we don't have to be entirely identified with that either, but just giving that some space and kindness. And there's fear that I would return. So all of that is playing out in front of this loving witness.
Right. And I forgot to mention the part, I do stand in the mirror. I have a mirror outside. I have a circular mirror next to my bed. So after I give thanks to the power of gratitude, I stand in that mirror with the headphones on with binaural beats, and I'm looking at myself as a supernatural being, a miracle in God's highest form of all creation, and saying, I am life. I love life. Therefore, I love who I am. I love myself. This person who was thinking about killing himself now loves him. I love who I am as a supernatural being, not just Brett Coleman, but as a miracle in God's highest form of all creation. That's like every morning it's a gift. Yeah. And that's how my brain looks at it. It's like, I feel when you put when the power of imagination mixed with gratitude, it's pretty powerful.
It is a really strong place. And we really can get to, part of, I think, what the malaise in our culture is, that we're identified too with these thoughts that, because we feel so separate from nature, because we feel so separate from our allness, whatever you call that, we more and more lean into, well, if I can get enough stuff, if I can have the right lawn, or, the open, what is it? The open kitchen, the curb, I don't know, all, the right Foreman grill, whatever it is, then I will feel well. And of course, we know, right, that we're chasing nothing, and we're approaching the problem with a solution that, in fact, exacerbates the separateness and the existential emptiness.
Yeah.
And so we're really being led in a direction that is not what heals, not what we need. We need more community. We need more connection. We need more in real lifeness, coming together, and not more stuff.
Well, I know I told Dan Lieberman the other day when I was talking to him about the author of The Molecule More, I said, Dan, here's what really tripped me up. The first time I made just shy of $250,000, the feeling never went away. The feeling was still there. And I knew at that point, like, oh man, I'm in trouble. So here I am at this point in my lifetime, doing pretty well, clipping $250,000 and still feeling this emptiness, the void inside me. But I had enough stuff going on, distractions around me, that I could focus, travel more, buy more, do this more, distract. And before you knew it, that whole world came falling down. So you're 1000% correct. You have 6 minutes to your stop and then 11 minutes to your hard stop. So let me move on with you. You're very busy and I appreciate your time. So what's the hardest part? Women come to you on a regular basis. What's the hardest part about being a woman today?
There are many challenges. One of the hardest parts is giving yourself permission to have needs, to exist, to have wants, to speak your truth and take that risk that it is to maybe not be what everybody wants you to be, right? To be known in a more real way. So for women, we tend to know what everybody in our life wants and needs, but we don't know what we want and need. So, or we know, who we are in all the roles we play for everyone else, but we don't know, for many reasons I won't go into here, who we are as a separate individual human, not what we do for others. And there's nothing wrong with that. We get so much joy from playing those roles. There are lots of cash and prizes to being likable and all of that. But there does come a point in our life for a lot of women where, what about what I want? What about, we're trained from a very early age, don't make it about you. But we need to, as women, learn, why not? Why not also about us? We've been there for everyone. We meet all of the expectations. We don't stop. And then we get to a place where we are so fundamentally depleted and maybe resentful and maybe apathetic and maybe depressed, and maybe what defines my, as Mary Oliver says, one wild and precious life, I don't know, because I haven't been encouraged to look in that room there. So it starts then with, how am I in this moment? To actually make yourself a destination, to make yourself a destination.
Great. And what's the hardest part being a male in your experience?
I think we're still struggling with the male's right to be vulnerable. I see it in my practice all the time. This whatever we want to call it, this expectation that men should buck up and get it together and not have the full range of human emotions is still very strong. I would also say that there is a very strong still conditioning for a man's identity to have to be around being professionally successful. And, for some people that's possible, and for some people it's not. So what I work with a lot of men in is redefining a sense of confidence and redefining a sense of identity that maybe is not so in our conditioning, is maybe not being that CEO or that superstar professional athlete or whatever it might be. Can you still be a powerful and worthy, whole, enough human when you're not how society defines a successful male?
So why then? I don't question too hard about this. Why don't I mean, I hear you saying that, and I agree with you 1000%. There's no disagreement there, because I have friends, I hear it, I see it. So I'm grateful that I am so open to being, if you call, I don't feel this is vulnerable. I think see, here's my mindset as a perspective is, this is a strength to be able to share my experiences, because somebody out there may need to hear what I have to say, and my experience could help them perhaps get their life back on track, so they can start to experience the best version of themselves and live their best life. So I feel no vulnerability, none. Is that rare?
No.
And then I'm gonna finish this up real quickly. And the power for me is not ego driven; it's purpose driven. So where's this going to go? I don't know. I'm not looking with dollar signs and, at the end of the game. I'm looking at the purpose and value I can add to people's lives right here in this moment.
And what a beautiful frame, and what I didn't say there, and I join you, is that behind what I call vulnerable just simply means the full range. Means that we have places where we are challenged, we have places where we're strong, we have places where we don't yet know, we are places where we know. And so I call that the fierce warrior. A real warrior is one who's willing to have a soft heart and willing to be what's true. And that contains our history, that contains the challenges we've overcome. It includes all of that, but to not be this perfect sort of automatron. And ultimately, that the greatest strength is the willingness to be what's true.
That's how I feel. I know you're at 39 minutes and 45 seconds, Nancy Collier. So I got one more question for you. You got to cut you loose. So are people ready? I wrote this down. Are people ready to break the addiction to their thoughts, or are they still getting high off anxiety disguised as busyness?
Yeah, great. I wish we could make a decision there for all of humanity. I would say that when one's suffering has reached a certain level, they're ready. And I think right now, when we're living in anxious times and in unstable times, and for a lot of people, very frightening times, that the scale is tipping, so that when someone might have had just their particular ruminations and obsessions and catastrophizing and self-criticism and regrets and right, going on in their mind, they now have an even fuller ball of wax there about, and this could happen and that could happen. And many of these things, it's true that they could happen. And so I think that that's creating a kind of tipping point where many more people, I mean, my practice, I get more calls than I can manage, but where the number of things now to obsess about have reached unmanageable levels. And so that's when if we're lucky, we decide we have to make a change and change our relationship with our thoughts. It's not necessarily that the thoughts.
I agree. You're the best. I really appreciate having you on today. And you have to tell people, I know you're not taking any new clients, I'm guessing, but where can they find your work?
Yeah.
They want to find your work.
Yeah, I'm taking new clients here and there.
Okay.
So I have I do take new clients.
Good.
So definitely reach out. My website is nancycolier.com, and I have one L in my name.
Right.
And my two recent books are The Emotionally Exhausted Woman and Can't Stop Thinking, two different books. And I give workshops at Kripalu and Esalen and Omega and all over the country. But it's all on my website. And so is my contact information. So nancycolier.com is a great place to start. The blog is on Psychology Today. And it goes on and on.
And I'm glad you clarified that, because I figure where you're at, you might be limited with your clients. I'm glad to hear that you are taking new clients. And you're just a wealth of knowledge and so much to unpack here. I'm going to just put it out there. I would love to have you back when time permits, because I know when this airs, when this is edited and goes out there, there's going to be a great response to this, and they're going to want to hear more from you. So if you're open to it, I'll reach out. And if it fits in your schedule, that would be great. We'd appreciate it.
And I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I just bow to your journey. It's really remarkable. So keep on keeping on.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.